Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode today. And today it's going to be something different. I am actually not going to be covering a company, but rather I'm putting out my philosophy in this just so that when I look back, can tell where I'm and where I learn, and so that I am keeping myself on track with everything I'm trying to do with both my investment path and I'm doing on YouTube. So, couple things about so first off, right, philosophy on how I view the market. I do think that the market, there's always going to be way more opportunities, and everyone is going to have a different way of making money. I'm going to have to dig to find the best ones, and obviously the best opportunities for me are going to be opportunities that I'm able to spot and I'm able to capitalize on. If you're able to capitalize on other opportunities that I'm not, obviously that's amazing. But there are definitely things that I know I'm not able to capitalize on. I am I am someone who does need systems in place to make sure my emotions are in check. So some things like that, swing trading probably wouldn't be for my forte, but something like making evaluations and actually doing a process to calm my nerves down and know fundamentally where companies are at, that is great for me. So I also think that the markets are irrational. Yes, I do think that the efficient market hypothesis is not completely true. I do think that the efficient market hypothesis is only true when the markets are rational, but the markets often are overpricing and uh, underpricing stocks and companies. So next up, right, I think that fundamentals will always trump sentiment. In the long run, that will and always will happen because at the end of the day, a dollar is a dollar is a dollar, right? Or actually, a dollar isn't no, that's not really true because of inflation, but we like ounce of gold is an ounce of gold is an ounce of gold is the idea, right? A printer that prints as much money as it can, you're going to pay that same amount no matter what year it is. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if people don't think that something is worth that much. If it can produce that much, it's worth that much fundamentally, and that's where I do think that there is always going to be opportunity in the market because there are going to be places where there are fundamentals and the sentiment are not lined up. And the final two things are actually going to be really just ideas I need to keep to myself and just remind me that nothing's ever as bad as it seems and nothing's ever as good as it sounds. Right? When the markets go down and crash, that's a buying opportunity. It's not going to stay down because nothing's ever as bad as it seems, and everything will rebound. Nothing's as good as it sounds because you're always going to project something to be amazing, you want your theses to succeed. So you're going to look at every single opportunity for confirmation bias. And because of that, anything that sounds amazing and sounds good, you are automatically going to be confirming it through everything that you see, which means that nothing's ever going to be as good as it sounds. This really just to remind me and mind basically all of you to be even keeled, right? Everything is going to be come out okay, and as long as you stick to your process and as long as you stick to a sound process, you will come out in the long run being more successful than you really think you have any right to be. So, what's my goals, right? So, a couple things here, right? For my investing, pretty simple. 15% per turn, 15% per year returns. I do think it is definitely possible. Is it going to be easy? I don't think it's going to be easy, but I do think it is very much possible. As for the channel, what do I really want from it? It's really to gain different perspectives from other people, and give different perspectives to the community, right? And that's the way we learn. That's how actually information is given into the market because of this differing ideas, right? We can propagate where and we can speak with our money to say, hey, I don't think this company is worth this much, so I'm going to sell it, or I think this company's worth more, so I'm going to buy it. I do want to build a community of like-minded people who are willing really to share their ideas, even in face of backlash, in face of essentially going against the grain. That is completely fine. I love ideas that are against the grain as long as you have something that backs up your thesis and all that. That would be amazing to see that, right? So, what is my process to really get to that 15% goal? Because I'm making this channel more so to push myself to do analyses to get to that 15% goal, more so than making the channel and then the 15% as a byproduct, right? So the process I want to look for great companies with bad sentiment. So essentially buying great companies at good prices. I don't want to look for good companies bad at great prices. I want great companies at good prices What that means is I do want a strong moat for the company, which so competitors are not going to have an easy time reaching in to take away market share, or even if they are, they're going to be much further behind, right? And I do want this is probably even more important than a good moat, or probably on par actually, is great management, good or great management, right? Because management for the company is really going to be the key for the company to be able to overcome obstacles that come up when if you look at the management for let's pick out Google, right? You look at that long history, you can see that they've been able to perform extraordinarily in every single type of scenario. So that gives you confidence that the management is great at doing what they're doing and making sure that the company stays on track for the future that you want to see happen. So once you find those, right, I want to do the fundamental analysis, which is going to be the historical earnings and revenue. You want to look at how much people have been paying for the PE, how much they revenue, how much margins, all of that they're making, right? And then you also want to integrate the management's perspectives, projections, and all that to really get a discounted cash flow analysis or a revenue, profit, and then ending value analysis or a DCF, right? For dividends. And finally, add in a personal perspective because what do I, accountants aren't making billions of dollars, or accountants really aren't making this 15% a year because they're backward looking. They think everyone can hear the management saying. So really, it's that personal perspective that really pushes it over the top. Like, hey, I think that I could. This is what's going to push me to outperform because it is what I think, and I am going to bet that that I'm seeing something that the rest of the economy, the rest of the market is not seeing. And once I've done all that analysis, then by the margin of safety is high enough, I'll get into what the margin of safety in the next slide. And then finally, the last two ones are really just going to practice my research on many different companies. I have done some analyses, but it never hurts to do more analyses. And the more you do, right, the more of that muscle you build up, and the more you're able to identify where you're comfortable with, which type of company you're comfortable with, and which types of company, hey, you might have some flaws in your logic when you're thinking. And that is really important to know. That's one of the biggest things when it comes to learning is knowing where you are weak, right? The worst thing to not to know, the best thing to know is to know what you don't know. And the worst thing to not know is what you don't know, right? Because you can't learn if you don't know what you don't know. And finally, I want to explain my reasoning in the videos just so that people can actually hear what I'm saying and I can get a different perspective on it. Even if people don't agree, I want them to disagree with me so that they can explain where my thinking is flawed, and such that I can actually develop a better idea of whether or not I actually believe my own thesis. Because if the thesis is strong, it shouldn't matter that people are disagreeing with me because I have already accounted for it, or it really is just a side tangent to what I'm already saying. And if it is a weak thesis, right, then I can be easily swayed from that idea. All right. So what am I going to buy and sell companies, right? So I want to buy when I can get a 50% margin of safety, given that I can see a 15% return over the next 5 years. Essentially, I want to be able to, which is, I mean, projecting being able to get 30% returns over the next 5 years, which is kind of, I know this sounds ridiculous, but there are definitely companies out there. And I do think that the opportunities are there, especially when sentiment gets really bad. And when in doubt, go conservative with the estimations because it's better. I think it's better to, because there's so many opportunities out there, it is better to let a couple opportunities pass by and just swing hard at the ones that you actually agree with than trying to swing at everything that comes over the plate, right? I think it's something that Buffett said is they really don't swing at anything except that's something, a fastball that's straight down the middle of the plate. And same idea. I'm okay letting some fastballs fly by me that are somewhat on over the plate, but I'm just going to swing hard at the ones that are straight over the plate. What about selling, right? Selling is a bit more. So really the one thing is I'm going to sell if the margin of safety gets way too low, right? I do have a pretty high tolerance for holding the companies because given the tax implications, the effort you require to find new companies to put that money into, right? If the margin of safety for a 15% return over the next 5 years is less than minus 15%, right? Then I think that'll be a consideration for selling. However, I do want to hold all the companies for at least a year. Ideally, I would want to hold over 5 years, but I can pivot if that changes, if like thesis changes and there are some new things that occur, and I don't believe that the original thesis applies anymore. Or if I think that the company really has issues fundamental to it, whether it be competitors or management leaving. And that's an idea for why I could start trimming or selling the company as a whole. All right, thank you guys for essentially coming to my TED Talk for today. And I'll see you guys tomorrow with actually another company analysis. And I'll try to make a couple more changes to the analysis so it's more interesting. And let's just raw numbers and just forcing numbers on you guys to start. Thank you guys so much and hope you have a great rest of your day.